Welcome to another episode of Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I look forward to drawing with you today. Please take your time to find your favorite drawing utensil, a pen, a pencil, a piece of charcoal, perhaps your finger and some paint, and set up a little workspace, either in a sketchbook, or some scrap paper, or some nice fine drawing Bristol in a booklet. And we'll begin to explore this week a connection with our movement through motion. Drawing as a creative act can emerge from beginning at an arbitrary line or curve, just a mark on a page that starts to suggest a trajectory or a filling of the space in that kind of unbearably blank canvas. Beginning from that mark, we expand and find repetition and connections that allow us to move, flow, and connect into our actions that eventually produce a creative expression here, just through a simple act of practicing our mindful connection. Come along with me and let's explore movement in drawing. One way I was thinking of approaching this just to pick some arbitrary direction and kind of draw hand across the page and draw out some kind of starting mark there to begin with, and then give that initial line a bit of motion by starting again, but slightly shifting its orientation and drawing relatively direct across the page, and continuing to have light shifts and just drawing it all the way across. At some point, those rotations will bring the line back over its neighbors, over the previous instantiations of it, and just letting it try to kind of flow across there and begin to have some rotational motion, ruling of this surface of the page with a series of straight lines. And as we rotate, having to recalibrate our hand to draw, pushing upwards, pulling across, pulling down, pressing away. You can see how that feels different in the hand. And then as we begin to cross over our previous lines, getting the arm engaged and lifting it up a little bit from the page so we don't smear everything across, though if you don't mind getting your hand a little dirty with ink, feel free to see what happens. If you pull across whatever pen or pencil you're using, you can always wash it off later. If I've gone around a bit of a circle, I might just start another place, maybe warm up my other hand to get that side of my brain going. They can be large or small, straight or bent. Definitely going to have more challenge with keeping a really straight line with my left hand, especially far out across the page. But I can play with that rotation of the line as its act of motion, just to get that arm and shoulder ready. And if everyone's had a chance to warm up, maybe decide which drawing implement you want to use. I'm feeling this blue pen is moving pretty nicely across the paper. I like these cheap, ubiquitous Pilot razor pens for writing and doing little doodles. I'm going to go ahead and switch my way over to another page, and again, beginning somewhere kind of arbitrary, just going to let the pen trace out some kind of sinuous or wiggly curve, just kind of filling up somewhere in the middle, going across, and then from that, building a couple more, be undulating with or against, slightly offset from the curve. Just these pulsing, flowing waves, whatever feels right. Be more straight or more wiggly. They can cross or stay parallel. Once I've gotten those expanded out across the field, just to fill up some space, prepare ourselves to take a little space, and come back to that sequence of lines and use that to begin to sink into a repetition and connection with my breath, just by beginning at any end or beginning with one of these curves and drawing a short little segment roughly perpendicular through it, something a little off the page. Then moving along the curve, drawing another similar segment, allowing it to flow with the curvature in the perpendicular. So as it begins to turn, the short segments turn. And as we get comfortable drawing our segments and matching the geometry of the curve to the geometry of the straight line, we can begin to connect our motion a little bit more to our attention, to our breath. Taking an in-breath as we move our hands in and out as we make a mark. Using that attention to the breath to try to keep an even spacing, an even motion, as that lets us connect through our body in this page. Even if we run out of curve, just going to a new one and beginning again with the same simple technique, drawing straight lines perpendicular to the curve, in short segments connecting with the breath. It can be evenly spaced on both sides of the curve, or start from the curve and work out. And it starts to expand that initial space that we're carving out for ourselves on a blank page, just letting it extend outwards and interact in the empty space. Filling the page with these slow movements of our breath. Along with a careful calibration to our connection between the eyes, the curves, the lines, and our hands. And beginning again, each time an opportunity to repeat either the same technique or perhaps make subtle adjustments to what feels right in connecting to the drawing through that breath, perhaps shifting down more asymmetrical, extending a little longer if the breath is getting a little bit slower and a little bit more uneven. Maybe the spacing between them starts to reflect the speed of our in-breath and repositioning, where you can begin to play with the spacing relative to your position and how you're holding that pencil or pen. If you start to reach further, do the lines move faster, or do they get tighter together? I think I'll make my way along a couple of more lengths of curve. Often just letting my eyes decide where the pen picks up and lets down. Not being concerned if it intersects or starts with a previous stroke, letting a bit of the visual processing just fill up that space. this feeling of motion where you can draw just a few simple elements, guiding trajectory of the flowing curve, the rhythmic repetition of straight-ish lines, and rhythmic sequencing. Maybe the making of the mark will begin to disconnect even from our breath, as our breath becomes more background and just relaxed as part of our being here. We can draw at a comfortable pace, whatever feels good in terms of moving the hands. Maybe that's quick, maybe that's slow. For me, if I go a little quicker, it feels more natural and the lines feel a little more direct or straight. My breathing can just be part of my being here, with the occasional remembering to check in on it, make sure we are breathing. Hopefully it starts to feel like it releases a little bit of tightness as we work through motion, our muscles and our eyes. And if you begin like me to reach the expanse of your page, you can always begin again with drawing a few more curves or start to inhabit this visual field and just find new connections across it, starting somewhere and just allowing the pen to connect lines that might intersect or have near connections. These little branchings reach outwards. Finding something new in the space of our drawing. I like these little misconnections, places where the end points are close to one another and just coming back in and giving them a link to expand the rhythm from one curve's perpendicular sequence to another, like the motion build in the opposite direction as it zigzags or jogs across the page. And finding these places where it aligns and giving them just a little more emphasis as we can celebrate and draw into what can emerge from a bit of a randomness, always a little controlled by our eyes and our visual sense, but free to have a bit of resonance from time to time and opportunities for dissonance to realignments, new connections. And just kind of darting through, following things, connecting what might feel right in one local condition. Just as a chance to keep the pencil moving and then reevaluating out to the neighbors with the same quick jog of lines, branching, cracking the new connections and flows. Maybe you find an area where there's a lot of repetition and allow for developing a series of connected shapes or drawings. Here I think I have a lot of these darting back and forth moments where the two curves partially align for a little bit, but now have slowly opening through that motion. and expanding. See where that begins to go. Is that allowed to extend new lines into one another? With this accordion flexing back and forth through this space. And as we find motion in the fields we set up, using the drawing as a place to sink in and meditate and think a bit about how we have these hands that move, these arms and shoulders that let us pull the pencil or pen across the page. This technology to create relatively consistent, repeated marks, whether that's a piece of charcoal that's ancient and it's been a medium from thousands of years, or this fancy high-tech felt tip pens, something we're allowed through our collaboration, manufacturing, and design. Let us sink into different rhythms of motion, maybe get the body a little bit more engaged with how you move through the field of the drawing. I like to use my chair here to let me kind of rock with the way I draw. Feel that slow progress of the ink onto the line. Engage with that slowness or friction, the constraint imposed by the tool to bring in the attention smaller and not focus too much on what the drawing might end up being, but just in the local moments of connecting these lines and edges behind layers of ink to form emphasis and repetition, knowing we don't have to finish the whole space, but just draw into each found condition of motion as a platform for exercising that flow and connecting with how we move our hand and our eye through the space for taking up on a page. I like to allow the pen to flow multiple times over the lines, just to, one, bring more intensity to what I see, that ink layering up, also to feel the echo of what might have come from an original marking or action here on the page. Just trace to it again, the pen sometimes falling into the previous rut of ink or pressure on the paper, and others escaping it, flowing on its own track like rivers carving a landscape. That small, subtle motion, and great place to let go and just be a part of the action right now. And as we're in that small space of motion, retracking, flowing of the line, bringing it back to our breath again. Being in this landscape, movement. That emerges from the rise and fall of our chest, the expansion and contraction of our abdomen, flexibility and restraint of our rib cage. Providing us with the kind of constant reminder of physical space we inhabit. Come back to small segments of the initial curves, see how they might play into whatever composition of connection and layering has emerged here. Maybe there's small sequences that are tied together. It can just be zoomed into, folded in upon for a minute. I worry and consider, like, am I repeating things? And then I remember that the practice is not the technique, it's just the practice. And so I also enjoy in the end each result that is unplanned, even if I give myself a little bit of a starting place. And I think that is a fun thing to take us out of the day for a few minutes every once in a while, to just have an unplanned creative thing that might help us work through a problem or come up with new ideas. I feel like there's a lot of fun going on in this drawing. I'm enjoying the motion. It reminds me of the kind of Muybridge or Etienne Jules Marais chromophotography analysis drawings that we're so fond of referencing in many of our lectures in architecture. I'm going to dig into this and see where it can go for just a few minutes. Please take some time with your own drawing after you've reached a state of relaxation and openness where you can flow with the drawing itself, and just see where you want to take it. There's something moving there, floating around the page, wiggling, stretching, occasionally repetitive, often slightly dissonant. The subtle adjustments that we have to make to move through the world, unfolding here in a roughly two-dimensional drawing. Action, interaction, flow, and occasional disruption, shifts, adaptability, and resilience. Can you find these in your drawing? Thank you for joining, everyone. I'm feeling refreshed. My arms are feeling engaged with the page, the shoulders worked and extended, my fingers have been pressed at the micro level, each nerve ending awoken and ready to engage with the day. My brain feels relaxed. I hope these practices can help you engage in this same way. And I look forward to hearing your comments below. Let me know if you liked the video, If you dislike it, please leave a comment. Let me know how I can make it better. Have a wonderful week and enjoy the holiday. Thank you.